everyone, welcome to my community garden. My name is Maryse. I've been gardening here for about a year, and my cameraman, also known as my husband, and I have decided to start filming our progress so that we can see the transformation through the years. So this little part here is the part that I'm renting. I have two beds, so this is the first one. I have the back area as well that I plan to just do flower gardening back here. When I started, it was all full of weeds. And just to show you guys already the transformation of this little corner. So basically here was just full of overgrown weeds. I did this process where I just weed whacked everything, and I weed whacked very close to the ground. I exposed the dirt as much as I could. Then I took a rake and I raked everything to expose even more of the dirt. This process is mostly so that all the annual seeds that are in the ground will fall on the ground and cover it, and that way they'll germinate. So the first plant I planted here is a lilac, and I'll put the description of the plants there in the description in case you guys are curious to know it a little bit more. But this guy's gonna have bluish purple blooms. It's supposed to bloom in the spring, so I don't think it will this year, so we'll have to wait another year for this one. That's completely okay. These are actually all doing fantastic. I'll go around and show all of you guys, but we planted them. They were just in little 4-inch container, and we planted them in the heat of summer. So they haven't been in the ground for very long, and they're probably almost tripled in size already, so I'm very happy. This one here is a Cleveland sage. If we zoom in a little bit on the plant, you guys will notice it does have some chlorosis, so that's why the leaves might look a little bit yellow. That's okay, it's a quick fix. It's just giving it some iron here. So I didn't say where I was either. I'm in San Diego, so we're in zone 9B. So the soil is very sandy, so nutrients pour out of the soil easily, so things like iron can easily be missing. I have been supplementing it. The problem is we've had a very wet spring, which is actually really exciting because we need so much water. We need water for the environment to thrive and for all the natural flowers to bloom out in the wild. But the problem with that's been doing is that the iron that I bought was water soluble, so I didn't want to add water on top of the already extremely wet soil. So I went and bought some pelleted iron, so I'll be able to continue supplementing it and hopefully get this plant to be a little bit healthier. Right next to it here is a St. Catherine's lace. This one you can see is full of little full of little almost blooms. They're getting there, so I'm super excited to see that the flowers on this plant for the first time. They're going to be little pockets of white flowers, so it should be really pretty. This one has some chlorosis as well, so both these plants will have to treat with iron, which again is not a problem at all. And these guys are my volunteers, so I didn't plant them there. They're right in what I intend to be a little walkway, so they're annuals. They'll die eventually, and I'll have to pull them out. But for now they're really pretty, and the insects love them, so we'll keep them there. At the bottom here, I planted some yarrow. This one's a variety that's supposed to get a little bit bigger. It's going to be pink blooms on this one. Pink bloom is going to be, I think, 3 to 4 feet, so it should pop up a little bit. But I planted that one just maybe a month or so ago, so it's just getting started. Here we have, this is a Chaparral Mallow. This guy is really pretty. It's going to get really tall, very beautiful pink blooms. So excited to see that one. That one kind of shocked a little bit when I planted it. I planted it at the same time as the lilac and the sage and the St. Catherine's lace, but it's stunted, so it didn't grow very much. So it looks like it's doing pretty good now, probably with all the rain that we've been getting. So hopefully, fingers crossed, it's going to make it. And if we continue here, this one is another little lilac that I planted about a month or so ago. So again, it's brand new in the ground. It hasn't done much. It's a creeping lilac. I will have to move it. I'm honestly not sure why I plunked it there. It's kind of a ground cover, so it stays very low to the ground, but can go up to 7 feet tall, so it would be right in the walkway. and it does need a little bit more water. It's still a native plant, native to California, but it comes from a region that's a little bit more water friendly. So I will probably maybe pop it in here in my raised bed, because I will be watering this area a lot more than just the ground. So that I'll probably just move it from here, from there to here eventually. That little baby plant here, I'm actually very excited about this guy. I don't know, it's very small. I don't know if you guys can see it, but there's a bigger version over there. Again, a month ago I bought the 3 plants. That one's an aster, and a little piece fell off of where I put the mother plant, and I thought, well, I'll just try to do a clipping out of it. And I popped it in the ground, and it's actually growing. There's some new leaves on it. It's looking really good. So yeah, so even sometimes when you rip parts of your plants off by accident, you can just end up with new plants. So very exciting. And then if you continue here, this is a raised bed that we added. My father-in-law and my husband built it together. They built this as not my raised bed, so we added this as like a community raised bed, so everybody's going to be welcome to what I will put in here. Right now I just planted 2 grapevines, so they're 2 blue grapevines. They're just starting to break dormancy. I just popped them in the ground, so they're still very much baby plants. At the front of it, I'm planning to do a lot of herbs so that everybody that rents in the garden can have a mix of herbs without having to take space in their own beds. Right here, this one is probably the most impressive. Again, it was like a little baby plant in a little 4-inch container. Planted it the heat of summer, and now boom, it's this gigantic plant. So super excited to see it. This guy is going to be really big. I think it's the area that it's going to cover is probably at its max, but it should get about 5 feet tall. So probably as tall as me, because I'm just 5'3", so just below my height. So still lots of growing to do. This is a saltbush. Again, another native plant, another beautiful plant. It will have blooms, but and it smells glorious. I really wish that you guys could smell it. It smells, I don't know how to describe it. It's like sagey, salty, probably why it's called saltbush, but very, very nice plant. Right, this one is a white sage. Again, these plants are just exceeding my expectation. They're just doing so nice. Oh, and these are my babies. Those are Irma and Hemingway. Our little fur babies, they're wonderful. They know not to go in the bed, so they have free reign, and they love coming here, experiencing the garden. We live in a condo, so they don't get to run around to their heart's desire, but we bring them here as often as we can. All right. But yeah, so this is white sage. This guy should have some bloom, but a lot of people from the garden here loves to take clippings from it. I mean, white sage is used for in the kitchen for all sorts of things, so I don't know if we'll ever see blooms on these guys, but on this guy, but it's still just a beautiful foliage plant on its own, and it also smells really, really nice just to touch and when you brush past it. And this guy here that is starting to bloom, maybe we can zoom in on the little blooms here. They're just starting up. But again, this has been in the ground for about a month. Very new plant. This is the plant that I took the clipping, so the clipping I can't come from this section here. I think it's when I take the host, I think it's getting hard to avoid mixing up plants. I'm gonna have to figure something out for making sure I don't hurt my plants when I'm watering, but that's a problem for tomorrow. And this guy is really cool because it's supposed to be flowering for 3 seasons out of the year, so it's going to be a big flower power to the garden. Now I'm in the front of my beds, so these are the beds that I'm actually paying for, renting here at the community garden. Super excited to get to grow food that I can eat. I'm definitely more of a flower person, but I do love growing food, so that's why I started with the flowers. But this little beast here is an artichoke. So I've never have homegrown artichoke. I planted it from seed. It's doing fantastic. I've got some lettuce growing. I've got some kale growing. I've been eating kale for months and months. I pick it about once a week and I make kale chips out of it. It's so good. Homegrown stuff always has just a fresh taste. As just, you can't beat it. You can't buy it. It's one of a kind. This guy here doesn't look like much now. That's an eggplant plant. I planted it in the heat of summer from a seed, and I didn't think it would do much. There was a hole in the garden, so I said, hey, let's try it. I've trimmed it back now. It was as big as me. It was over 5 feet tall. It gave me probably over 30 eggplants. I was able to share it with my coworkers, with my friends, eat plenty of it myself. Such a giver. And because we are in San Diego, we don't get frost. So technically this plant should have died through the winter, but it didn't. And it was looking a little bit sad. So instead of pulling it out of the ground, because it was still alive, I thought I would just give it a go. I trimmed it back, and I'm just gonna see what it does. It does have some flower on it. Hopefully it's gonna keep producing the fruits. It's actually packed with flowers. If you look, there's some all over in all various stages. So I'm pretty excited to see if it'll keep making fruit for me. My approach to gardening is very much just do it and see what happens. I've heard that from another gardener recently, is if you're really excited about something in the garden and you share your idea with somebody and they tell you not to do it anyways, and then see what happens. And that's very much what I do in my garden. You know, I'll plant seeds whenever, and I just cross my fingers and hope for the best, and if they don't grow, then you just plant something else, and that's perfectly fine. But I started gardening here, like I said, about a year ago. I've probably started planting less than a year ago. These beds were covered in bindweed, so it was a lot of effort to get them clear of the weeds, but totally worth it. I also wasn't sure where the ground was at, so I didn't really add much to them, and I'm really happy to see how they're doing. I haven't fertilized any plants here. I did buy some organic fertilizer today, so I'm definitely going to fertilize the eggplant just because it's given me so much already, and I want to give some food back so it can hopefully keep on giving. But all of what you see here, nothing has been fertilized. We have our own compost here at the garden. We'll tour it later, but I've added some of the compost that we grow here, but that's the only extra juice they've gotten. I built this arch here. I was really excited. I built this arch right at the beginning of last summer. And I had this dream of having melons growing on top of it, and I was like, oh, it's gonna be my melon arch, it's gonna be fantastic. And my melons grew to about here, and then we have a big gopher problem. So all of a sudden they started dying, and then when I looked down, the roots were completely eaten off of them. So I did not get my melon arch, but I will try again this year, and hopefully we'll get it. And hopefully the gophers will leave the plant alone. It's kind of a battle, but it is what it is. I always say, you know, it's really sad to lose a plant, but if I want a melon, I can go to a grocery store. If the gopher is starving, they can't go to a gopher grocery store. They gotta eat what the land has to offer, and living in a city, there's not a whole lot of land for them to feed off of. So they can take a little bit, that's okay. These guys here are sugar snap peas. They have been giving and giving and giving. I'm really pleased with how much peas I've been able to get off of them. It's kind of funny because I'm not the biggest fan of sugar snap peas. I do like them, but I love English peas. So I love the peas that you have to open and get the peas from inside. These one you can eat the whole thing, which is a lot less laborious. So yeah, so these are the peas. These are my little stories about planting the wrong type of peas, but it's been fantastic because, again, I've been able to share it with friends and family and my coworkers. So everybody gets to enjoy a little taste of the garden. I will strap these back again to make the pathway a little bit more, but I haven't gotten to it. Down here, I planted lavender recently, mostly because I read online that the scent deters gophers, and again, we have a big gopher pressure here, so I'm hoping that these guys will help with that a little bit. A little weed here. So, new experiment. I did plant the correct peas that I do want here, and they're still just little babies. So I will get my English peas, my little taste of English peas before it gets too hot for them to be happy here. They do like a little bit of a colder weather. And then I've got some lettuce growing and some turnips, but the turnips, again, I don't spray, I don't, you know, I let be, I let live. So my turnips, definitely the leaves got eaten. These ones are looking pretty good, but you can see the difference of having insect pressure on, and then no insect pressure, or a minimal insect pressure. These ones are definitely happier. And then if we go on, I have the second bed here, which is mostly strawberries. Half of it is strawberries. I might pull those out. Strawberries are perennial. I have this love-hate relationship with the strawberries right now because you can see there's loads of them on there. They're delicious. They have a little bit of closeness. I'll have to give them some iron. But a lot of the time they get munched on by birds or little mammals, so I don't get to eat as much as I would, and they take a lot of space. Like I could probably have them a little bit less spaced out, but they do take a lot of space, so I might pull them out and just have more space to grow other things. In this corner here I have all sorts of different colored beets growing. This year I haven't had the best luck with beets. It's a little bit my fault because I let this giant poppy grow pretty much on top of them. So what happens with beets, if they don't get a lot of sun or enough sun to what they like, is that they'll get a lot of leaves. They'll push out more leaves so that they can capture more of that sunlight because they're not getting enough, but they won't grow a big root ball, which is a part that we want to eat. So that's a little bit what I'm experiencing here, is just very beautiful lush leaves from what I can see, but the root is very, very small, which is okay because they're beautiful to have there. Here is my row of carrots. I have been eating off of this row of carrots for at least a month now. The way I do carrots is I don't thin them very much. So when I plant them, I don't really pay attention. They're very thickly planted, as you can see, but the ones on the outer edge of this little row usually end up forming a decent carrot, a decent root. So I start with those, and as you take the ones from the side and you leave the rest when that space gets opened up, they start growing as well. So it just makes it easier because then you don't have to thin them. And then they're not gonna get like giant, but I do prefer smaller carrots. I think they're a little sweeter. So that's kind of how I do it, and it's worked great for me. And then here again, I have some baby kale, some baby lettuce, some chard that's growing, all doing really well. This is my Brussels sprout, and if you zoom in you can see this is covered in all sorts of insects, covered in aphids, but there's a lot of different insects on there. Again, I don't spray, I kind of let live. It's always interesting to see how one plant can be completely covered in insects and the rest of your plants are not. So sometimes it is actually, especially if you don't want to be spraying, if you don't want to always be tweaking your plants, to just, be like, okay, well this plant I'm giving back to nature, giving to the insects, because it's all part of a food web, right? You let the aphids there, then they're going to attract other beneficial insects. Bigger insects, then they're food for the birds. The birds again will poop, fertilize your soil. So it's all a big food chain that sometimes it's just better to stay hands off and let it happen and sacrifice a few plants. And yeah, I probably won't be eating Brussels sprouts this year, but maybe next year, and I can always get them at the store. So this is pretty much my space that I'm renting, but I have big plants for the garden. And if camera turns around, or we can turn around together, you can see that there is a lot of space and a lot of weeds. So this is a little bit what that side looked like before I started taking over. There's one bed that's rented there that's really beautiful. And even on the walkway, I'm sure you've noticed as we were filming, there's weeds pretty much everywhere except the area that I told you I did that process last year. And as you can see, it worked really well. There's no weeds back there, even though the rest is completely covered. So my plan is to slowly kind of tackle the area. I'm probably going to sacrifice the little poppies, the California poppies that are here, and those salvia, those salvias here I planted last year, so they're coming back. I could go and just kind of trim the dead branches, and you can see there's some fresh new leaves, fresh blooms. That plant could survive. I might either dig it out and pop it somewhere else, or just sacrifice it. And again, we'll take this whole area and a little bit like it's slightly different, because I wouldn't put a cover crop here because I don't want the soil to be nice. I just want the weeds to be gone. So just a similar but different process, and we'll take you along for that just so you guys can see how much, you know, it is a weekend, but at the end it's going to be completely worth it, because all this is going to be gone and then it's going to look like this with very little effort. So hopefully we can show you guys that when that happens. This bed, we can look at it for a few seconds. It's pretty impressive because this is actually a peach tree that's growing in the middle of this bed. The lady that rents the bed, and it's covered in peaches right now. They're small, they're just starting to grow, but there's loads and loads of them everywhere. There's 3 here, there's some more here, just covered. It's doing so well. And this is only 2 years old. So this tree, she didn't plant it. I think it came from, we have a compost bin over there. We'll get to it in a second, but either from the compost, from her putting compost and it was in there and maybe it didn't get quite hot enough to kill the seed, or maybe a small mammal came and dug it out of the compost and then dig it in here and planted it, and it's just doing fantastic. And now we have peaches. And if we go over here, so then back here again, work in progress. During COVID, a lot of people that were renting stopped renting, so that's why there's a lot less people to do the weeding and a lot less people to do the maintenance. It's not in anybody's backyard, so it's hard for somebody to just keep up on top of the maintenance because it is quite a big space. So, but that is my plan, is to get this area as beautiful as I possibly can. So this is a really nice pergola. I think it was donated. I heard from the lady that runs a community center, it was donated to the garden, so that's very nice. I wish I knew who donated it. I don't remember. We did plant a passion fruit vine here, and this will hopefully cover the whole pergola and give us some passion fruits. I'm really excited for that. Planted it probably 6 months ago, and it was maybe halfway, maybe about here to that pole there. So it's growing really nicely. It's doing fantastic. Here is not very interesting, but it is our compost. Not very interesting to see, but very exciting to have. We have a multi-chamber compost where we put the vegetables in the first bin. We turn it. We have more of the garden matter over here. Then we'll mow over it to make it small and let it decompose, kind of have a leaf mold there. Then we will combine the two, and the final products end up right here. So it's really neat to have that. Saves a lot of money, because if you guys garden, you know that dirt is not cheap, especially good dirt. And if we continue our little tour here, so again we have more weeds. So there's a lot of work to be done, and I'm really excited to get it going and get it started. This bed is rented. It's beautiful. She has a really pretty a very pretty lavender plant that's always covered in bees. Always covered in bees, which is really fun to see. Borage plant. These little guys are really fun to have because the flowers are really a really nice accent. You can eat them, so it's very fun to do like little drinks or add them to salad as like a little pop. She has some peas growing, but I won't go through everything because back here is just to show you like this space and all the possibilities. This is mostly either rented beds that people are gardening in, but it's a lot of weeds, as you guys can see. Some pretty weeds, because there's some wildflowers over there which are very pretty. Ultimately, I would love to get the beds area cleared up of the weeds and maybe plant some just really low maintenance flowers, just so it's pretty and kind of reduces the weed pressure. So that's my plan for that. Oh, there's holes here, and hopefully that will happen and it'll look glorious. Then we have Hemingway and Irma here running around. The last bit at the back. So here we have a lime tree that produces every year. It's doing pretty well. It does a lot of limes. We have a little small apple tree there that I'm always surprised grows apples. It has a good amount of flowers this year, but apples, to me, I always thought apples grew more in a colder climate, but this little guy seems to be doing all right, surviving, has been producing apples for many years. And at the back here we have a big pomegranate tree. And that is pretty much the space. So thank you so much for watching this little video. I hope that you guys will stay tuned for other videos so you guys can see the transformation of the space. With the YouTube channel that we're planning to do, we also want to talk about knitting thrown in there, because that's my other passion. So before I let you go, I just wanted to mention that I'm wearing a top that I knitted. This is from, the designer is Lily Kate Makes. It's an upward top, and it was really nice to knit. It was very easy. I can show you guys. It's a little tank top, so really good for summer. At the back here it has like a little hole, and it's actually reversible. You can put that little opening at the front or at the back. You guys can decide. But a really quick knit and definitely fits really well, and I appreciate making it. But that is all I wanted to share for today. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll hopefully do about a video a month to start with, and hopefully you guys will come back for more. Thank you. Bye.